everyone. Welcome to another episode of Inside Sports Recruiting. My name is Jesse Marsh, and I aim to give insights on the college recruiting process in different sports through talking with athletes. I believe that everyone has a unique recruiting story, and I want to share it so that other young athletes entering the college recruiting game can be as best prepared as possible. My guest today is a very accomplished men's lacrosse player. From Boca Raton, Florida, he lit up the field as a four-year attackman for one of the best lacrosse teams in the state in St. Andrews School. At St. Andrews, the two-year captain was twice named to the first team All-District and first team All-Region. He was also integral in the team's 2018 state semifinal run. He played club for Sweet Lax, Florida, where he was a Sweet Lax Invitational All-Star. Outside of Florida, he made a name for himself in the Northeast as a post-grad student at the Lawrenceville School, where he was named first team All-Region. He's been a welcome addition to the Mercer University Bears' lacrosse team. He was primed for a productive year, scoring 11 goals and contributing 4 assists in just five games before heart procedure and the COVID-19 pandemic cut his season short. Remember the name, because this young man could be a star in Premier Lacrosse League one day. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to Carl Klepper. How's it going, Carl?
Well, man, how about yourself?
Doing pretty well. Just enjoying the summer, enjoying not being at school anymore.
Yeah, awesome.
How's the COVID-19 pandemic been for you?
It's definitely been a shift in the everyday life of an athlete. I mean, especially with athletes, we get tested every week. Our testing time was every Thursday morning. So if you didn't have your COVID test in, you didn't test negative, then you weren't playing for that entirety of the next week. So it was definitely a weirder process, but we got through it.
Yeah, definitely is an adjustment. Glad that we're getting past that with the whole vaccine rollout and like more loosened guidelines with the CDC. Mm-hmm. Definitely should be promising in the upcoming year. How was your last season? Were you able to have like a season? Like, was your team be able to practice? Like, were things like sort of normal, or were they like really whack because of everything?
So our season was relatively normal. We had a few kind of COVID scares on our team where a few members would test positive and we'd have to adjust to the situation. But we played a full 13-game schedule. We played through all our conference play, and we got through the entire season with, as much ease as possible. But, we had to postpone a game against a SoCon opponent, Richmond. We had to only fly 20 people to Air Force, which was pretty struggling, but we did come out with a win, luckily. But yeah, it was definitely some troubles, throughout the way, because, when key players test positive for COVID and, other players have to kind of step up, it's part of the game, but, it definitely shifts the team attitude, team demeanor.
Were you able to play a part? Did you have any COVID scares or anything like that?
So this year I actually tore my patella tendon in my knee. So I was out for the majority of the season. I played the beginning, but I was out for the majority of the season, which was unfortunate because one of our other key offensive players tore his labrum in his shoulder. So we had 2 of our I would say top 3 scorers out for pretty much the entire season. So it was, kind of difficult for our team this year. But COVID-wise, I was negative every week. Didn't have any problems there. But I'm glad that, the vaccine's out and everything, and we can kind of shift back into somewhat of a normal life.
Yeah, and I wish you all the best in your recovery. So let's just talk about, like, how'd you get into lacrosse in the first place?
So my dad actually was a big athlete back in high school, and he was a big, basketball lacrosse player. So when I was growing up, he put me in all the different sports, played football, lacrosse, basketball, soccer, just, whole spiel. And, when I was younger, I always found that I was the best at lacrosse comparatively. And I was like, okay, well, it's fun. It's a dynamic sport. It's kind of a combination of a lot of different sports. And, all my buddies started loving it too. So we kind of just stuck with it. And by the time I got to high school, I was like, wow, like I could go and play college lacrosse. Like that's been my dream since I was 10 years old. That's what I want to do. So I stuck with it. And, here I am.
Yeah, so speaking about like that college dream, so when like I know lacrosse, like just being in school with a bunch of lacrosse players, just like seeing like I know that the recruiting process sometimes like people are committing like a freshman year in high school, and but it's like different for everyone. Like, so when did that recruiting process start for you? Like, when did colleges start reaching out?
So my recruiting process was way more difficult than I had ever intended it to be. So as a freshman, I received maybe one look because we can't talk until junior year of high school. You can't actually talk to the coaches. So, but you can like kind of get interest and stuff. So I only had interest in one school or from one school, and that was High Point from my freshman year on. And I was pretty small, like comparatively to how I am now. So my freshman year, I was about 5'9.5", 145 pounds, and even all the way up to when I got committed, I was 6'5", 190 pounds. And then I did my post grad year, and now I'm 6'6", 235 pounds. So it's a big
Wow.
difference. So the recruiting process was a little different for me because I was a late bloomer. But yeah, I mean, come junior year, I started getting some more looks. I started, getting kind of more into it, but I didn't really hit my peak of recruiting until the summer before senior year of high school. And that's kind of when there was just like the breakthrough for me where I finally, got the interest that I wanted, got, some offers, I actually got to play around and see, what I wanted to do. And, I mean, even after I committed, the recruiting process was still going because until you sign a national letter of intent, which I didn't do until my Lawrenceville year, my post-grad year, colleges can, reach out to you. So, it was a really long recruiting process, but I'm very happy with my decision. I'm very content with Mercer University. It's been a great experience so far.
Nice. So I know you said that High Point was the first like team to really look at you. Were they the first team to like send you an email or like you had a phone call with the coach?
Yeah, so they were the first school ever. I mean, it sounds very generic, but I was invited to their prospect camp, and that's kind of where you get invited and you go and you play in front of the coaches, see if you can get interest. So I went my freshman year of high school and put on an okay performance, I would say, and really never heard from them back until I kind of developed as person and a player, kind of my junior year-ish. So then I was talking to the coach my junior year and got invited back and absolutely blew it up everywhere and went crazy. And it was awesome. But, they have a great program over there. Respect the coaches a lot, but the place wasn't for me personally. But yeah, it was definitely nice kind of to see the development where I just went to a prospect camp as a young freshman, decent lacrosse player, and then coming back as like a junior, senior, more developed and just different game.
So how was that feeling when you like got that call, like you got that call from the coach or like that email when they invited you again to like another prospect camp and that was like really your first look and like you were just kind of like, yeah, this is real, this is happening, that like I'm now in that recruiting process, like playing in college is actually a possibility.
Yeah, so I mean, when I got that email, I looked at my dad and I was like, wow, like that's a pretty generic email. Like they probably send that to a lot of people, but and they I had a conversation with the head coach and he was like, yeah, come up here, if you perform, maybe we'll start engaging in actual talks and like see if we can do something. And I was like, okay, well that's kind of not what I was hoping for. I was hoping for like, oh, we love, we're interested, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you know what, I got to go prove myself. So I went there and definitely proved myself because right after I went straight up into the coach's office and got my offer. So that was definitely a cool experience.
Nice. Nice. So I know like at the Division 1 level, there's only 5 official visits and like, so like first of all, like how did you decide like whether you wanted to go D1 rather than D2, D3, and like when you decided D1, like how did you decide like which visits you do, like you take an official visit at or like which one you'd be like taking unofficials at? that you were like still interested, but you weren't like that interested in? How'd you like go through all of that?
So for me, one of my biggest things was I always kind of wanted to stay in the southern region, kind of, because I went up to my post-grad year at Lawrenceville for a year, and don't get me wrong, that was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. But the Florida boy definitely came out in me, where I didn't love the snow and didn't love the cold weather, and the seasons were a little different, and just kind of the vibes were a lot different. So I desired to stay more in the South, and thankfully that's where I was getting recruited a lot by. I was getting recruited by a lot of the teams in my current conference. So that was kind of cool. But gauging where I was going to visit, that was more of factoring in, what schedule they play, what I've heard from kind of some of my other friends. My coaches gave me guidance because they would know some of the coaches at some of the schools. And also, like at tournaments, I would kind of get certain vibes from certain coaches where first meetings are everything, in my opinion. Like your first impression, that is a huge thing kind of with anything in life, like business, whether it's business, recruiting, just meeting someone on the street, meeting a friend's friend, meeting another friend's parent. So when I would meet the coaches at some of these summer events, that first impression was like, wow, do I want to play for you or do I not want to play for you? Like, do you seem interested in my best well-being and developing me as a person and a player, or do you just want me to come there and just play lacrosse? Because that was more of what it was for me. It's not just about playing lacrosse and playing sports in general. It's about developing as a person and developing as a player, and that kind of gauges the rest of your life, in my opinion. So that's kind of what set apart Mercer for me. Is a man by the name of Kyle Hannon and Chad Sermon, who are Coach Hannon sadly resigned last year, but Coach Sermon's still there, and they were big and very influential in my going there. So
Nice. And yeah, speaking of the cold, I definitely here at Novo when it snows, it's definitely rough. So you definitely made the wise choice of staying down in the South.
I actually took not a visit, but I've been up to Villanova a few times, playing prospect camps and talked with the coaches. Yeah, so that was and that's kind of when I realized, wow, I don't know if I'm ready to do it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I know you spoke a little bit about your post-grad year at Lawrenceville. Like, how did you end up thinking about, how did you go through that process? Like, how did you decide oh, I wanted to take an extra year to develop myself, and I wanted to start college a year later?
So I actually made that decision my sophomore year of high school, that I was going to do another year of high school, because I knew it. My parents knew it. I was a very late bloomer, not only physically, but mentally. I was kind of a pretty immature young high schooler, and a lot of my friends, they would come out and they'd be like, oh, they're all built and they're all that. I'm just the skinny, tall kid that just hadn't developed yet. And I was still immature, doing stupid stuff. And so that's kind of what did it for me. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to dedicate myself to becoming not only a better player, but a better person. I'm just going to better myself in every way. Lawrenceville was a really good gauge for that, amazing academic institution. Probably wouldn't have got in there without lacrosse. And, I met some amazing people who are still some of my best friends. And, it kind of changed my life. I mean, I went there 190 pounds, and I left there about 215. So not only physically, but, I learned, different study habits, because it was the first time I was ever living on my own. Lawrenceville is pretty much like a college. It's a boarding school where, you're away from your parents, you're away from home, your guidance, it's all on you. So that, I think, was kind of the bridge for me to, start my college career successfully.
So would you recommend that for other young lacrosse players who might not think that they could get the best looks when they're a senior in high school, that they should maybe take another year and try and develop and see what they could do with a prep year?
So based on my experience, I would highly recommend it. So I was also the youngest person in my class, beforehand. So that also played a factor. And I didn't even turn 18 until I graduated my first senior year of high school. So I was also very young, but yeah, people develop differently. There's a lot of different factors that go into taking a post-grad year. But I definitely think it's very beneficial, not only just developing as a player, which is, a lot of the kids' goals is to, I want to get better at whatever sport I'm doing. I want to get bigger, faster, stronger, but just developing as a person and reaching that maturity level that you want to get to before you get there to college, I think it gives a significant advantage, starting your college career.
Nice. So how was that? So I'm guessing, just like thinking about you saying it, you started looking at post-grad options and decided that route sophomore year of high school. So that means you'd have looked at colleges and post-grad at the same time. So how was that experience of looking at both of those types of deals at the same time?
It was definitely very interesting because the post-grad schools that I was looking at are some of the most pristine boarding schools in the country. I visited Exeter, Deerfield, Lawrenceville, Taft, Choate, all these really kind of big name boarding schools that, kind of ship a lot of kids off to Ivy League schools and all this other stuff. And, that was very kind of different than where I was going, like lacrosse wise. So, it was definitely interesting because I would go one weekend, the same weekend I visited Lawrenceville, I visited Furman University. So I went on Friday to Lawrenceville and then flew down to Carolina and visited Furman on that Sunday. And it was just a very interesting experience, but, I had to get around, had to see everything, see what I like, see what I don't like.
It seemed like it worked out all well for you. I mean, did pretty well at Lawrenceville, put on some size, got into doing pretty well. You did pretty well in your few games in D1 lacrosse so far. So looks like the future is bright for you. So yeah, my last question is, what advice would you give younger athletes about to enter the recruiting process? Like, what are some of the things you wish someone told you as you were starting to look at colleges and looking at post-grad options?
So my biggest advice would probably be, if you want it, you need to dedicate yourself to it. You can't just, say, oh, I want to be a Division I athlete. I want to put in that work, and then just say, oh, you can't say you want to put in the work. You have to put in the work. And that's something that hit me kind of later, because as a freshman, sophomore, I was like, okay, so I can go practice, I can go play, but, I can still go party and, do all this other stuff and, kind of, slack off on my grades sometimes, just play video games instead of going to work out. If you want it, and you can, as an athlete, you can set yourself so far ahead of others by just dedicating yourself to what you want. If you want it, you can't just say you want it. You need to actually go and put the time, put the work in, and it'll definitely pay off, in my opinion.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Some good advice. All right, Carl, thank you so much for joining me today on Inside Sports Recruiting. I look forward to continuing to follow your career at Mercer. I know you're recovering from surgery, so just enjoy that time in recovery. And I know you'll come back stronger. I can't wait to see you do some big things on the field.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.